My wife and I at our wedding had this little table set up at our reception with some note cards on it, and we asked people to give us their best marriage advice. Leave on the little card, leave us a note of the best piece of marriage advice that they had for this new married couple. And we had one card that was absolutely awesome, and it only had 2 words on it, and all it said was "fight naked." And we had a good chuckle about that one. But I remember being there, newly married, young man, with my wife, and looking at it and going, I know that God's got this purpose for my life, this union in our marriage and our future family, and this purpose in my life to be, a good husband, to be a leader for my family, to be a spiritual leader in our home, and kind of asking this question, okay, so this is what God's calling me towards. How do I go from where I am standing here, knowing nothing about marriage, and to what God's calling me to some of the examples that I've been able to see around me in my life, and just wondering well, how do I go from here to where I believe that God's calling me to in my future? I think that sometimes when we're looking at a vision or purpose in our lives, one of our first inclinations can be to say, well, what do I need to know? We seek knowledge when we're trying to identify, if I want to go from point A to point B, what do I need to know to be able to make that jump? And that's obviously a big part of it. We don't know what we don't know. I remember reading books about having a baby and being able to raise young children, and you can read all the books you want and gain as much knowledge as you want, but until you're holding that baby in your hands, all of a sudden things become very different. It's like all kinds of things they never wrote about in the books. Knowledge isn't going to be the only answer. You got to go through it. You got to walk through it. But our natural inclination, at least my personal natural inclination, is to seek knowledge. I want to find out as much information as I can, because that's what I prefer. The way I prefer to learn is rather just by reading rather than necessarily doing. But it's actually in the doing that the journey and the move towards the purpose actually becomes true. I can read as much as I want about a specific subject, becoming maybe a subject matter expert. But like I said, until you've walked through that journey of being married and have been married for a number of years, or you're walking through that journey of raising children, you can read all the books you want. But until you're actually doing it and actually applying the steps, then you're not actually moving towards that successful purpose. And this isn't just in our marriage or raising our kids. This is in God's call and purpose in all areas of our life. There have been multiple times in my life where I've had the opportunity to see John Maxwell, Tony Robbins, just really great communicators speak and uplift and encourage people. I've had the opportunity to see them live a handful of times, and a number of other great communicators. And I'm always, in those moments, I catch these glimpses of what God's calling me to. Not that I want to be a John Maxwell or Tony Robbins, but just that I want to be able to uplift and to encourage people in the way that they do, to be able to connect with people in the way that they do, because I see that the impact that they can have on people's lives. And I feel that call. And I wonder, have you ever had experiences like that where you see in other people glimpses of what God might be calling you towards, glimpses of God's call or purpose in your life? Because I think we can get a really good glimpse, a good picture of maybe what God's calling us toward through the lives of the people that are around us, or through the examples of people that we maybe admire. And it's not always just going to be something that comes to us in a vision or something like that. I think we see the values lived out on other people, that we can begin to identify what God's calling us towards. We talked a couple videos ago about catching glimpses of God's vision and purpose for our life. And I think when you're seeing it in other people, not just in maybe a vision or in other, in other ways that you might see that vision that God's calling you towards, it could be reading through his word or whatever it is. But when you're seeing it actually in other people, I think I personally have had this tendency where I can fall into this idea of, maybe I'm not actually looking at it as the vision that God's trying to show me, but I actually compare myself to where I am today as to where that person is. And oh my gosh, why am I not there? Then I'm sort of in this comparison loop, in a negative loop. And I start asking myself some of the wrong questions. I can start asking myself, instead of, still looking at things positively, but I'm going, oh man, what do they know that I don't know? Or who do they know that I don't know? There's lots of emphasis on, well, it's not what you know, but it's who you know. We say these little things, it's not what you know, it's not, but it's who you know. Then I can find myself, if I can shift my mindset just slightly to be a more positive look at it, and instead of saying, well, they must know something that I don't know, I can at least ask the question of, okay, so what do they know that I don't know, and maybe where could I learn it, or who do they know that I don't know, and maybe could I potentially get around those people, or some of those doors be opened up. But that isn't always it either, right? Those aren't necessarily always going to lead me on the journey towards a success. It's not still fully all the right question, if that makes sense. This is where I find it pays to ask the question, what did they do to get to where they are? What are the actionable steps that they took over their lifetime, over their journey, that have allowed them to get to where they are. I know my parents and my in-laws have both been married for 40 plus years. They have these incredible marriages. They're incredible people. Nobody's perfect. Everybody continues to make, mistakes. We all do that, but they do set this example of a successful marriage. And, they can give us great advice, but the greatest advice they give us is how they live their lives on a daily basis, because we're able to watch them and see them, how they communicate with each other, how they forgive each other, how they continue to make mistakes, but they continue to move through it. How do they spend time together and sow into each other? It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. They're this glimpse and vision of what I believe God is calling my wife and I towards our future. And I've got so much work to do, but it's not necessarily things that I need to learn so much as more that what do I need to apply? And, I think that when we see these examples, if we can ask that question of not, what do they know that I don't know, but what have they done that I need to do? What have they done that I need to apply into my life on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis that's going to move me towards this vision that God has for our life, move me towards his purpose in my life? I think it's key to remember often, when we see people, in success in any area of their life, we might be seeing them at a pinnacle point. And then we're not comparing ourselves. We're comparing ourselves to their pinnacle point, and we're standing in a trench right now trying to figure out how to get started. That's not really a fair point of comparison, right? Because we all go through the trenches, but we didn't get to see what they went through. We didn't get to, understand the times when no one was watching and they were sowing into their marriage or sowing into their business or learning how to communicate better. How much did we not get to see as they went through that, the different ups and downs and challenges of life that we all get to go through, but we don't get to see it. So we think that it might have just happened for someone, or they just woke up and had a successful marriage, or woke up and had a successful speaking career or book launch or whatever it is. It's been so interesting over these last couple of years in writing and then releasing the book. There just so much life has happened in that time period. I think that, having it out there now, and it's amazing. It feels incredible to have sort of put that dream into practice, put it into print, so to speak, get it out into the world. But everything that's happened in our life over the last couple of years, my wife and I, our kids and our family, ups and downs in business and all these different things. And I'm going, wow, this is incredible. Life just continued to come at us as we were getting closer and closer to releasing this book. And it doesn't look anything like I thought it would, thinking that it was going to be just all smooth sailing, right? Just get this book out there and it'll all be great. And everybody will, give you all the accolades and all whatever the heck that is, right? But there was so much that continues to go on, the ups and downs of life. And that continues to happen. John Maxwell tells this great story. He tells it often, but he tells the story. He's at a conference and there's a young man comes up to him, and he's at this conference and he's getting all these accolades and everybody wants his autograph, John Maxwell, and he's a great speaker and writer, and he's written all these books, and the young man looks at him and he looks around and he's going, man, this is incredible. Like, you're impacting people's lives. I want to do what you do. And John goes, yeah, there's probably a lot of people that want to do what I do. But he said to the young man, he said, but are you willing to do what I did? And that's the key question that I kind of want to get through today is, are you willing to do what I did? Are we willing to go through the stuff? Can we identify what the actionable stuff is, the actionable steps are that we're going to work through when nobody's watching, when nobody's looking? The things that create integrity, the things that create and build your values. What are you going to do when no one's looking, that's going to build you into the man or woman that God's calling you to be? And if I want to encourage you with that today, because, as we talked about before, every action that you take is a vote for your future self. And God's got an incredible vision and purpose for your life. And to be able to move towards that requires those small, daily, actionable steps. As we're getting closer to the end of 2021, I got a great email today from James Clear, and he had this question. I just kind of wanted to prep you with it because it's a great time. We really want to start thinking about, 2022, goal setting, mapping out God's vision and call for your life over the next year and in all the different areas of your life. And he asked this question in his email. He said, 12 months from now, when you look back, what will you thank yourself that you started working on today? What are the actionable steps that you can start to put into our lives, my life, today, tomorrow, over the next couple of weeks, over the next year, that, when I get a year from now, when I get into December of 2022, can I look back and what can I look back and say, man, thank goodness I started doing that. Maybe it's picking up your Bible on a daily basis. Maybe it's starting some devotions. The Bible app's incredible. It's got all these amazing devotions, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days long that just encourage you to stay engaged and plugged into the Word and learning. What is it that you can start today that you're going to look back 12 months from now and go, thank goodness I started doing that? If I can encourage you to ask that question today, start prep yourself, because 2022 is going to be an incredible year. God's got an amazing vision for your life. He's got an incredible purpose for you. He wants to do incredible things in and through you. Have an absolutely amazing day, and I look forward to sharing with you next week.